Welcome to Focus Today, and I am delighted to have back in the studio. We did an all-nation search, an APB on him. We found him, ladies and gentlemen. Bob Justice back in the house. He's been very busy. He's now post-candidate survival.
Yeah, that's right.
And good to see you, buddy. Where you been?
It's good to see you,
Yeah, good to see
as
you.
always.
Yeah.
You're hanging out in my favorite city, Grants Pass, Oregon.
Well, you know, your three fans call regularly, and they want to know, where's Bob?
Where's pestering you, huh?
No, we're delighted to have you back. Boy, there's a lot going on, and I know you've been busy. You've been attending a lot of things. He is the original community organizer. Why don't you run for president?
Yeah, we need a real community organizer, one that seeks the private sector to make the difference.
Yeah, well, anyway, good to see you, man.
Thank you.
I want to get right into it because we only have you for a couple of sections here today, but this U.S. Army training instructor classifies Catholics and evangelicals as extremists, kind of like the Al-Qaeda and Hamas group. What in the world is going on here?
You know, I heard Limbaugh talk about it yesterday, and it was such a shock to him that, and I think he knew it would be so hard for the audience to believe, Perry, that he repeated it 3 times.
Wow.
He said it again, and then he said it again. Because I, like you, and I'm sure all the rest of the people, I'm listening to that, it just doesn't compute. It literally doesn't. Our American our Judeo-Christian, won World War II, hope of the world, amazing American military is now saying that Catholics and evangelicals are extremists. It doesn't compute.
Where does this come from? Where does this come from? Is this coming from the Obama administration?
Well, yeah.
Is this the tail end or the coattails to the don't ask, don't tell?
Yeah, exactly. You and I have been talking about this for years. I mean, this is the rebellion against God's order rising up that's been going on for 100 years in this country, and now it's coming to fruition. And all of a sudden, Barack Obama gets reelected, and sadly, many Christians didn't vote. And what does he do after he gets elected? He's got 4 years, no interruptions. He puts gays in the military. He puts women in combat. What is that all about? That's the left saying to conservative, traditional, under God Americans, we don't need no stinking rules. This is.
We want no boundaries.
We want no boundaries.
Right.
There are no boundaries. And government is God, and government is the definer of what freedom is, and all of these lies that the left has been pushing for years.
When will the military push back?
Ooh, that is a great question.
Because there's the core of the military is it's a brotherhood, sisterhood of a commitment that's unlike anything else. I mean, they have said we're willing to die for our country.
No, that's absolutely right. But the corollary question to what you just asked is, why are there no big resignations? Why are there no big resignations? I mean,
retirement. It's retirement.
General MacArthur had a run-in with the government over the Korean War in the early 50s. What happened when Truman fired him? He was invited to Congress to speak and gave that famous "Old soldiers never die; they simply fade away" speech to Congress. There was a time when our military leaders would have been resigning publicly over this. Now, in fairness, some of them may be thinking, I'm going to hunker down and try to fight from within. But I'm surprised there hasn't been 1 or 2 high-profile resignations. You're ruining our military. The public needs to know it type of resignation.
Wow. Now, is this in concrete, or is this just being introduced, this potential training policy?
Well, I think the bottom line of it is that the official name is the U.S. Army Reserve Equal Opportunity Training Brief. Lists Catholicism and evangelical Christianity as examples of religious extremism. I think it's where the military's going. I mean, one of the agendas of the left, and the left pursues its agendas relentlessly because, and one of the agendas... And incrementally. They'll take whatever piece they can get, and they keep moving forward. And one of the agendas has been to corrupt or transform the Judeo-Christian military with chaplains and honoring God. I mean, my best friend in high school went to Annapolis, and I was the best man at his wedding. And now, this was a long time ago, but I remember the formality, the raised swords, the respect for women on campus. Back then, Annapolis was all male. The codes, the formal dances, the whole military is rooted in Judeo-Christian tradition, and the left has always hated that. And so, you know, now they've got another big piece of their puzzle.
Well, coming up, let me just say to our viewers and listeners, Dr. Jerome Corsi is going to be with us, and
he's great.
He's talking about the ACL continue relentless pursuit to erase faith from the public square.
Right.
And you know, all these attacks with the crosses, and that's just the beginning of where they're going.
Right, and the founder of the ACLU was a communist. I think, you know, one of the hard realities that we have to face is that, you know, we say the Cold War is over. The Cold War just basically came here. I mean, there's a Cold War going on. You know, in my article, Fascism, Corruption, and My Democratic Party, which was in the summer of 2000, so it was before the election debacle, and I was describing the anger of the left and the relentless strategy, you know, one party overall attitude. And their whole mentality is to take everything they can get one piece at a time.
All right, a couple other things before we head to a break here. As you know, we lost Margaret Thatcher a couple of days ago.
How sad.
And I was on a website yesterday that showed all of the front pages throughout Europe announcing her death. Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, and I could be off a few numbers, but I think it's like 6 out of the 10 were very negative and very disrespectful of her. So she was a very divisive leader.
Right.
But at the end of the day, she was the first and only female prime minister, the longest serving prime minister. You would think, in spite of the policies and all of that, that she perhaps would have won some kind of a respect, and she wasn't given the opportunity of a vote for a state funeral. Do you think that's because it's the possibility she wouldn't have gotten the vote?
Yeah, who knows? It is possible. You know, when you say divisive, younger listeners need to understand, she was divisive the way Ronald Reagan was divisive.
Yeah.
She saw that socialism was taking over her country. Now, of course, Britain was much further down the socialist path than we were when Reagan became president in 1981. But the point is that she was divisive because she blew the whistle and said, we're not going down the socialist. Socialism has failed. Socialism has failed in other countries, and it's failing here in Britain, and we're not going down that path. And of course, the unions and all the other people that she pushed back on hated it. They hated it, and that's what.
Well, she broke the back of unions, and at first, when she came to power and lowered tax rates, there was a high unemployment. The response was the employment went up, but it was like only up 1 quarter. The next quarter, everything immediately turned around. I mean, they had some of their greatest days. Do you think she'll be remembered as a great leader?
I absolutely do. But, you know, it always depends on who writes history. If the left writes history, which is their hope, she'll be seen in a different way. But true and fair history will see Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan as great leaders, you know, among the greatest leaders of the 20th century. Where
is that leadership today, Bob? I mean, we are starving for that kind of leadership. I mean, they're leading not because of a consensus or committees. They're leading because in their soul they believed what they were, and what they believed in what was right. They led from that. They led from in. They didn't lead as a result of polls and committees.
Right. They were bold, and having run for office, and of course you have, you know the experience very well.
We're a couple of losers, ladies and gentlemen. We're just
You lost by 1 vote. I lost by 58 votes.
We're losers, Bob. We got to get over it.
Right, get that L up there. What we're missing and what we need desperately are leaders. You know how our founders, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, pledged their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor. Yeah. We get lives and fortunes. We understand that. But sacred honor is a little more mysterious. And I think what they were saying, and I think what anyone running for office now has to say, is, I'm giving you my reputation too. Running is a cross. Running for office is a cross. In this era, it is a cross. Because if you stand for the Lord, if you stand for His right way on the social issues, for example, you will be destroyed, or they will try to destroy you, especially in the bigger arena that you were in. I was in a county leadership. You were, running for a bigger office. But the point is, we need to do two things. We need to encourage good, strong, bold men and women who know what they think to run for office, and we need to support them and understand that the left is going to try to destroy them.
Yeah, and we need to support them early.
Yes.
Most of these elections are won and lost in the primaries.
Yes. Yeah.
As you well know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, before we take a break, a couple things. The president now is out still pushing some form of gun control to the point of intimidation and using the tragedies of Newtown and others as props.
Yeah.
Which is just despicable.
Really?
But he's doing it. He seems to be very imperialistic in what he's doing, and there seems to be zero pushback. Zero pushback. And I'm thinking, all right, John Boehner, who are you? Why are you sitting quiet? Why aren't you throwing a gazillion bills and forcing this president to veto common sense legislation?
Right, and what you're asking too about leadership relates to this question too, and to what made Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan so special. They knew they had authenticity. They believed, they knew what they thought, and they believed with full conviction.
Right.
And they were bold in stating it and standing for it.
Yeah.
And we need that boldness now. There's too much gentleness, if I can put it that way, because they're always trying to get the women's vote. They're trying not to offend anyone. They're trying to be a nice guy. Margaret Thatcher, she just lowered the boom on the left. And that's what we need.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with our buddy Bob. He's running for president. I'm going to run his running mate, and we're going to turn things around.
Flip that.
We'll be right back. All right, we're back with Bob Just talking about all kinds of things, and now that he's thawing out from being a loser, we commiserate together. He's lost running for public office, so have I. But, we gave it the old shot.
We learned a lot.
We learned a lot.
It was a good experience.
Yeah, it is a great experience, and but I got to tell you that we've got to stay at it. I want to come to this relentless pursuit of guns. Yeah. And going after him. And the president using cops as props, which they didn't appreciate. He's using the families of Newtown as props, put them on Air Force One, brought them to Capitol Hill to lobby and intimidate lawmakers. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like any gun legislation is going to come out federally. Now, a lot of states are doing things, but at the federal level, it doesn't seem like anything's happening. But there is this endless pursuit to take the guns away.
Right. We all know the expression "follow the money." That's with the left. It's really simple. Sadly, it's just follow the power. They're all about power because in order to validate themselves, they need to control everything. They need to take over, because that's the only way they can recreate America in their image. And so everything they do is about power. So I'm convinced the Second Amendment thing is totally about the 2014 election. They're targeting certain congressmen that they need to beat in order to control the House. Mm-hmm. Okay. And of course they want to hold on to the Senate. And I think they're using the Second Amendment issue. You know how?
But that backfired on Clinton. Clinton took on the Second Amendment and lost the House on the midterm election.
Yeah, I don't know. These people are so good with studying demographics, if I can put it that way. We've lost a lot of World War II vets since 1994, and that era, the Clinton era. And in other words, we've lost a lot of conservative, traditional Americans. Right. That's what that amounts to. And I think that the left did very well with single women by scaring them with the war on women and everything like that. But of course, they didn't do that well with married women. Married women tend to, and have children, and they tend to vote conservative. The gun issue goes to women with children. It goes to the Democrat weakness. Those babies, those 20 precious first graders were murdered along with 6 teachers or so, 6 or 7 teachers. Horrible. It's horrible beyond imagining. And that brands something emotionally. And they're using that emotion to go after the married with children women on that issue. You know, the Republicans don't care about these dead children, these precious dead children.
Well, yesterday we had a stabbing on a college campus. Are we going to see?
I didn't hear about that.
Well, 14 people got stabbed on a college, the Lone Star University in Texas.
Wow.
Out of Houston, and 14 students got stabbed. I mean, where's this? Is it the gun? Is it the knife? No, it's the individual. You know, so
right.
I don't know, the death culture that seems to be uncontrollable in this country, it's just an amazing thing. But he's going to continue to go at it. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere as far as federal legislation, and yet some states are trying like crazy to pass various laws to control.
Right, Colorado is already passing it. They're going to do the state thing. I'm looking to, watching the Oregon legislature, and I'm concerned since the Democrats control things. But they're going to do it in the State House. But from Obama's standpoint, I think it's all about the 2014 election. In a sense, he wins if he gets anything from Congress, and he wins if the Republicans hold the line, which we want them to do, because first of all, the things he's proposing will not, and they've admitted it, wouldn't have changed the Sandy Hook massacre.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have changed it.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is about. This is all about emotion.
Yeah.
It's sadly.
Are you frustrated that there isn't greater pushback from the House because the conservatives, at least, I say conservative, let me rephrase that, Republicans, because they're not all conservative, but they're not pushing this president? I mean, why aren't we coming out with a list of bills forcing this president to veto, or forcing Harry Reid to not give him a hearing?
I mean, you're right. If there's one thing I hear, I was talking to you off air about attending a grassroots meeting. I was on a media panel, and people were voicing their concerns. These were grassroots leaders from all around the state, and meeting in Salem, and they were voicing their concern. And I would say the tone is, why aren't we being defended? Why aren't our rights being aggressively defended?
And the answer, the response was?
Well, I mean, the whole point of the meeting was to galvanize grassroots. There were some very significant political leaders there, including Dennis Richardson and Herman Bouchiger and Sal Esquivel and others. The head of the Republican Party was there, Suzanne. Yeah. And they were very serious and very with us. So we'll see what happens. But I'm just saying that the tone, and I'm sure this tone is duplicated by conservatives in the grassroots all across, Tea Party grassroots, et cetera. Freedom Works, Americans for Prosperity, those kinds of groups, 9/12. I'm sure that tone is going across the country.
All right, I want to go to your heart for a minute.
Ooh, okay. You're the guy to do it.
Okay, well, I am becoming hurt and angry at the same time, I guess. And I'm trying to figure out how to manage those emotions, correctly and effectively. But there just seems to be zero response from the faith community on any of this stuff. We're filling the churches on Sunday. And you scan the dial, you'll see thousands of people attending church, which is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I think that the world is so upside down. It's the church's greatest hour. It's just wonderful. But it's not translating into a cultural change. And I'm not, I don't know how to respond to this, but there just seems to be we're watching an administration mock Christianity and mock God's order on everything.
Right.
And we're letting it happen.
Right. And I honestly think, great spiritual warriors like Dr. Dobson and others have been blowing the whistle for a long time now. I think sadly, I'd love to get your comment on this, but I think sadly the average pastor really just doesn't know what to do. Look at Dr. Dobson, look at the power that he has, the authority he has, or Focus on the Family. They have tremendous, or Family Research Council, they have tremendous platform, but what do you do? When people don't vote, when they don't see, now here's the thing, without vision the people perish. People look at Barack Obama, he goes with his beautiful family to church, he says he mouths various, true Christian statements, whether they're true to his heart, I don't know. He presents so well, and yet what he does is all undermining traditional America, aggressively undermining. So what do we do?
Well, he can be judged by the fruits. I don't know what's in his heart, but we can judge.
We judge by the fruits.
We can judge by the fruit and the policies. I've never had such contempt for the policies coming out of an administration that is anti-God, anti-American, anti-Christian. And I say that with a broken heart because I'm thinking, wow, And it's just amazing. It's just overwhelming to me. You know,
Right.
there's three things we go through. Shock and awe. When something happens like this, we go, you know. Then anger and blame.
Right.
We get angry and we want to blame someone. That's a stage we need to understand you need to go through. Don't stay there, because the only thing that's going to do is create enemies. And then then you wake up and realize, all right, I take personal responsibility. And that can be a little overwhelming, but you can start with your family, you can start with your own community. That's why I commended you going at the county level. You got to start there.
You got to start somewhere.
And move out. But there just seems to be, I don't know if the whole world is just on overload, if the emotion of everything being upside down. I don't know of a country that's not economically in trouble. America is being tested at every level, from the military to the home to the classroom and everything else. Maybe it's just so overwhelming we don't see a solution here. We don't see a turnaround.
You know, well, yeah, I mean, I resonate deeply with that. And that third stage, you know, you think of Jonah in the belly of the whale, the kind of epitome of hopelessness, you know, without God.
Right.
I mean, God put him in the belly of the whale. But you imagine being there, not just in the belly of the whale, but down deep, down deep. I mean, a picture of hopelessness. But his hope is in the Lord. And that is the sharp sword. That's, next thing you know, he's back on the track and off to Nineveh, right?
Right.
We're in that mode. Our hope is in the Lord. And that hope has to manifest when God, you know, we have to put our foot in the Jordan. We have to get on our knees, but then we have to be willing to act. We have to pray and act. I mean, for years, you and I have been talking about that. Now, in fairness, a lot of people are saying, well, what do we do? In Grants Pass, you know, I mean, it's a vibrant church community, and we have Serve Grants Pass, and, you know, there are more and more people, you know, adopting you know, being foster parents to homeless 17-year-olds, and you know, people are reaching out. We've got Joe's Place, it's reaching out to street kids, and things. A lot is going on, and but I just, you know, I guess in the end, the key to what you're saying here is the third stage. You know, you start with shock and awe and anger and blame, and then you take personal responsibility in Christ.
Right.
We take responsibility in Christ. Right. So we're on our knees. Jonah emptied himself, you know, no hope without the Lord.
Right.
But then action.
Yeah, I think we look at it at the big scale. We look at the big problem and say, well, I can't do anything. Well, you can as an individual. But you can, at this level, you can come back, you can serve a homeless person.
Small beginnings.
You can serve a homeless teenager, you know.
Right.
Hearts with the Mission and the Youth for Christ now coming together. I mean, those are collaborations that need to happen. You have, I don't know of a church that doesn't have some kind of a community outreach. You can get involved there and get going. You know?
Right. And I think that, you know, the attack, we have to remember that the leftist, you know, attack is on men and women. It's on God's order of the family, men, women, and children. And of course the children are under fierce attack, spiritual attack with the culture, and so are men and women. But look at what Barack Obama did by putting women in combat. Constitutionally, if women are in combat, women cannot avoid the draft. And we need to all of us need to look at our 15-year-old daughters and our 16 and 17-year-old daughters, and we have to imagine, if there's a national emergency, what the left is doing is putting in place an ability to draft our women into war. And, you know, women are the precious thing to be protected. They are what we die for. You know, they and God, you know, are what we stand for and what we believe in and what we die for. And there are precious ones, and the left is taking them because the left doesn't care about that. The left spits on the patriarchy, which is simply described men and women who love each other and honor each other as men and women, as different beings created intentionally by God with great power and authority, but different power and authority. And the left hates that. I mean, it's interesting, this Ashley Judd thing, the whole spying issue. By the way, these are Google glasses, and I am spying on you. You are now. Oh, you're already on TV, so I get that. But the Ashley Judd thing. What is the thing that they're profiling her? Well, one of her big things is they're rejecting the patriarchy. They hate this notion that men have a particular responsibility and that women have a particular responsibility. Speaking of responsibility, they hate that. And they do everything they can to undermine it. And foolish men, starting in the Cultural Revolution of the 60s, said, oh, okay, so I don't have to be responsible, you know. And we started to unravel from there.
Bob Just, full power, back in the saddle, full throttle. There he is. Thanks, buddy. Get you back often. Glad you're kind of all weathered out now and ready to come, huh?
It's good to be
here. Good to see you.
Barry.
Thanks for your passion, buddy.